Doing well, and welcome back to another video. So I know I published a video only a few days ago, just touching on a few different things, a sort of wider scale outlook on the markets that we trade, right? And just touching on some sort of generic things, which is I think only about 3 days ago. But this I would count as the first official weekly outlook of the year. There's also basically a continuation of the previous one and touching into sort of more specific levels that we want to see get hit in the very sort of short term. Now, this week that just passed, the first week of the year, we started with a nice IO Fed here, right? There's a weekly IO Fed on our bond yields, and we already have a buy side target in mind, right? I'm expecting something quite similar on the US 30. We'll just take a look quickly. Yeah, very similar. We didn't get the weekly outfit, but we are very close to that buy side liquidity. So overall, we want to see higher prices on this for now, right? And similarly, on the DXY, it's looking like it's poised to go higher. Based on this close, I wouldn't necessarily expect a previous weekly low sweep, right? When we expect those sort of previous weekly low, high, monthly low, high, whichever way it is, we have to consider the proximity of this close and the next open. Is it impossible for us to come and sweep that? No. But from the way it's looking, from where the weekly candle closed, and based on how the bond yields are looking, what I would anticipate, I would say is a much more likely scenario, is that we end up respecting this daily fair value gap or trade somewhere into this sort of built range, a continuation higher, and then potentially down the line, we come back later for this sort of sell side liquidity, right? So these are the areas to watch. Now, this is definitely consolidated by what's happening over on EURUSD and GBP/USD. But before we come on to those, just very quickly, I would like all of you guys to mark out, again, like we said, we consider proximity, right? The previous monthly high. All right, we'll mark that out. That's not lined up at all, so it has 8, 2, 6, 6. Very nice. And when we go on our daily chart, we understand that this is sort of the consolidation high. This is definitely an area we want to see get run out before a potential, reversal / continuation this way towards these sort of targets lower down here. So now, cool. Let's actually take a look at both of EURUSD and GBP/USD. EURUSD, we start out on our weekly time frame initially. Very nice, like the bond yields opposing them is coming from a weekly IO Fed with a previous weekly high sweep, and based on where this candle has closed, I would anticipate price to trade lower, right? This is definitely going to be one of the first targets, which is the previous weekly low. And based on this candle's high, I wouldn't really anticipate the previous weekly high to get run. Again, consider that proximity. Closed here, the next candle opens around this area as well. Yes, a retracement into this area is a given, right? We have nice daily fair value gaps and a very nice range to use. I would go from this high to low and treat this as a range, right? Yeah, then like that. And of course, we have the daily fair value gaps to use and just generally price to trade back into this premium for a continuation. On GBP/USD, it's just as nice, I would say. If anything, we have a much clearer target to work towards. We've got that previous weekly high sweep, had a bit of a consolidated inside candle, nice sweep there, strong move down, very close proximity to that previous weekly low. So that will be the first initial target, right? Previous weekly low, and then past that, you guys can see I've already marked out a specific sell side target there, right? And otherwise, that's gonna move. Okay, cool. That's good enough. And like I said, GBP/USD does look a bit nicer here. You've got that same range to use, where we can go from high to low. But in between that, we have a much clearer, nicer fair value gap, daily fair value gap that we want to see swept into, then price trade lower. Now, based on the sort of news events this week, when can this occur? We have news drivers pretty early, right? Before we even discuss the news drivers, let's consider the fact that we are only 1 week into the year. The reason I'm making this video is because we do actually have a decent amount of volatility already. You guys can see we had a consolidation. This was over the sort of Christmas period, right? Where price got very tight, consolidated, but we've already got a nice kick. We've had the manipulation, buy side taken, kick down, and now just anticipate the continuation. Now, like I said, considering it's the first week of the year, there is a chance that, price does not necessarily move how we expect, right? It might get swept out, it might be a bit shaky, but at the end of the day, the market will behave how we expect it to behave in the sense of, the arrays it respects, how it hunts liquidity. None of that stuff changes, right? Something to just consider is that it might be a bit slower at times and it might not. Now, sorry, the Monday is definitely a day to leave out, right? As usual, let it build a week for us. Potentially if you can get the Monday moving a little bit into here, right? Creating an order block, right? And then from there, we can look for the continuation down from the daily fair value gap / a move into the premium. And over here, right, we have the first red folder, which is Joe's job openings and the ISM on the US dollar. Then on the Wednesday, a more significant mover is that we have the ADP, right? And we have the unemployment claims and the first FOMC meeting minutes of the year, right? So Wednesday, we would expect to be a decent mover. And then what I would say is the main mover of the week is our NFP on the Friday. So considering that we have that, added volatility, all our markets are in sync, the bond yields are lining up, DXYs are lining up. We have very similar daily fair value get presented on our DXY, EU, GU, and they're all putting in pretty much correlating directions. I would anticipate that we can definitely get a high probability trade set up at some point this week. Right, there's one main move we're looking for, which is the reversal from areas like this to then continue towards 1 and 2, specifically on GPUSD. And for EURUSD, I'd focus the previous weekly low. And past that, we don't really have a very clear target. But until GU takes this out, I would anticipate EURUSD runs in the same direction, right? And similarly, if you haven't already, you can definitely mark the previous weekly high on DXY. All right, cool. So that is how it's looking on our main pairs. We'll just quickly touch on this update on our Bitcoin. So from the looks of it, Bitcoin sort of back to its normal behavior. It's just, sort of stuck in this consolidation. We have had a previous weekly low sweep and a trade back into the range, but nothing major, nothing to suggest, we're going to blast in either direction. What I would say is this is very clustered sell side liquidity being built up. When we move into our monthly time frame, we can see this is still the previous monthly low. This still remains the target for the time being. What this means in a scenario like this is it's best off being pretty hands off, just waiting for this to get taken out. We don't necessarily need to trade towards it. It's not a great area of movement that we will get here unless you're, sort of leverage trader and you're planning to short it. But even then, it's consolidated here on the daily. It's not very clear. I'll just give it some time. Like Bitcoin does, it always, shows its hand at some point, and we have to be patient. And lastly, on S&P, right? We previously discussed a previous monthly low sweep. This is still definitely on the cards. Bull market in the short term. I know we've had a bit of a, sort of move away. But when we come on a lower time frame, this is essentially just a consolidation. What I would anticipate is that we don't run this consolidation high first. I don't want to see these highs get run out just yet. I'd rather price trade a bit lower, tag some sell side, and then we get a nice sort of market maker buy model back up. Or rather, it will just be a very clean accumulation, manipulate here, take it some sell side, hit the discount, and then distribute back up towards the highs. Right, very simple. In the short term, to me, there's not an extremely clear play, but something to consider is that, if we take this high to this low, right, this is an internal range, there might be a potential chance to short, especially when you see, you know, accumulation here. If you can sweep this and we get a very nice kick down, then we can start working towards 1 and 2, which is the previous monthly low, which should be our first drawn liquidity for the time being, right? And then past this, we can consider lows like this and this, which are pretty equal. And at that point, you'll be somewhere in the discount. But now you can start saying, okay, we're looking for S&P logs back towards the highs, right? Cool. That is pretty much it for this first weekly outlook. Like I said, guys, you know, feel free to just follow along. You don't necessarily have to engage the market this early in the year. But at the end of the day, like we said, if all the boxes are ticked, everything is very, very clear, then why not, right? And if you're feeling a bit shaky, then consider compromising. Maybe perhaps take a risk on, take a trade on half risk, right? Risk 0.5%, maybe less. Whatever you're comfortable with, right? What I would say as a rule of thumb, something, you know, that can make things mentally easier for a lot of you guys, is be patient with your first trade of the year. I think for a lot of people, if we're being, you know, subjective, it can sort of set the tone. You don't want to start the year on a loss. So until you have a very, very textbook setup by your own accord, I'll say wait for it. And if that first trade is a winner, it's a very nice trade for you, then it's very likely you're going to have sort of momentum, you're going to be in a good mood, and it'll be a lot easier to carry on and stay disciplined. You wouldn't want that first trade to be a loser and, you know, you start moving a bit rash. But even if it is a loser, guys, even if it ticked all your boxes, as long as you followed your own rules, it's just part of the game, right? It's nothing to stress about. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this weekly outlook. As usual, if you guys have any questions, you can leave them below, or you can drop me a private message. I'll be happy to help.